En el marco de los trabajos del Foro Fronterizo de Infraestructura Verde, organizado por la COSEF y el VEDAN, dentro de las celebraciones del 20º aniversario de las dos instituciones, se abordó el tema de la calidad del aire el viernes 19 de septiembre. Esto en la Mesa 2 con los expertos David Nowak, investigador especialista en bosques urbanos del United States Forest Service, Margarita Collazo, con una investigación compartida del Departamento de Biología de la Facultad de Ciencias de la UNAM, y Phil McNeely, gerente del Departamento de Programas Ambientales de la ciudad de Phoenix. El comentarista fue César Murillo, coordinador de asesores del subsecretario de Gestión para la Protección Ambiental de Semarnat. David Nowak presentó un trabajo sobre la remoción de contaminantes del aire con infraestructura verde en Syracuse, siguiendo un esquema amigable con el acrónimo TREE.
T is temperature reduction. Cities tend to be warmer than rural environments for a couple reasons. One, because we tend to replace natural vegetative surfaces with impervious surfaces. We put down roads, buildings, sidewalks. Those artificial surfaces absorb heat and re-radiate heat back, which creates an urban heat island. So city systems can be anywhere from 2 to 5 to 10 degrees warmer than rural environments. The greatest differential tends to occur right after sunset. When the sun goes down, the rural area will cool off. The urban area tends to stay warmer because it retains the heat. We put impervious surfaces down. We create our own heat by burning energy. We also lose a lot of evaporative surfaces by replacing vegetation, which tends to evaporate water. So cities tend to be warmer than rural areas. In the case of ozone, which is a small component, nothing emits ozone into the atmosphere. It's a chemical reaction. If you lower air temperatures, the photochemistry rates of the reactions change, and we tend to have lower ozone when you have cooler air temperatures, along with less emission. Second on this is pollution removal. And this becomes very important in terms of design of urban forests. There are two ways that plants remove air pollution. We have mainly five prominent air pollutants. We have ozone, which is the prominent gas, and smog, that haze you get during the summertime. You have nitrogen dioxide, you have sulfur dioxide, and you have carbon monoxide. Those are all gases. The stomates on the leaves that we were talking about before, during the daytime when the stomates open up and evaporate the water, there's more gas outside the leaves than inside the leaves, so the gas diffuses into the interior of the leaf surfaces and absorbed by the water itself. Water is a great removal of air pollutants. Do you ever notice how clean the air gets after it rains? Well, plants offer a lot of water and allow the surfaces to absorb those pollutants. And plants do a very good job at absorbing ozone, and do a moderate job at absorbing nitrogen and sulfur, and they do a fairly poor job at absorbing carbon monoxide. Across the United States, for all trees, we have about 35% canopy cover. The trees in the United States remove about 17 million tons of pollution removal per year. And only about 650,000 of those 17.4 million tons is actually absorbed by trees in urban areas. So it's a fairly small amount, and it's a fairly small impact on concentration changes. Trees in cities typically improve air quality less than 1% on average throughout the year. What we did is we looked at that change in concentration on human health. Nationwide, it's valued at about $4.6 billion, but in the urban areas alone, it's about, $6.8 billion nationwide. About $4.6 billion that come within our city systems, which again is only 3% of our land base. So having trees in cities have a significant impact because they're affecting the air quality right where the people live and where they breathe. Some of the impacts are shown here. Reductions in mortality nationwide. We estimate about 850 lives nationally being saved, and reduction of 670,000 incidences of acute respiratory symptoms. Emissions. Trees emit what are called volatile organic compounds. If you smell a pine tree, smell a rose, smell an orange, it's a natural chemical that's given off as part of photosynthesis. Some plants give off high amounts of volatile organic compounds, some give off very little amounts, so species selection becomes very important here. What's the issue with volatile organic compounds? Gasoline also is a volatile organic compound. Volatile organic compounds, when mixed with nitrogen dioxide in the atmosphere and sunlight, form together to form ozone in the smog. So VOCs from plants can be contributors to ozone formation in cities. So we have to understand that. So species selection to low VOC emitting plants can become important if you have a smog or ozone problem within the cities. Last one is energy conservation. Trees, when you plant them around buildings, will block winds, will shade the building, and provide evaporative cooling. Generally, when you're in warmer climates, trees are great for energy conservation because they reduce our need to run air conditioners in buildings. If we reduce our need for air conditioning or energy use, we reduce emissions from the power plants. So it's a secondary effect. As we move to more northern climates, say the northern United States, it becomes very important because we have to heat our buildings also. So if we shade our buildings in the wintertime, we can actually increase energy use during the winter season. The question is, what's the trade-off? Generally, trees to the west are the best, followed by trees to the east, trees to the south. In northern climates, you have to be careful because you want the sunlight to warm the building in the wintertime. And even trees out of leaf in the north can block about 40% of solar radiation in the wintertime. So design becomes very important. And if we then reduce energy use in cities, we reduce emissions from power plants. Nationally, in the United States, that same forest, we estimate about 36 million megawatts of energy avoided, worth about $4.3 billion from electrical energy use by trees in our country, and about 228 million MBTUs of energy production, about 2.8 billion from winter energy savings. And this feeds back again into emissions. Not only are you saving money for the homeowners, you're avoiding emissions from the power plant. We have a tool that we built in the Forest Service, it's a free public domain tool called Aire that allows people to measure vegetation either in your backyard or across cities to quantify what we call the structure, how many trees you have, and the services that are provided, some of the things we just talked about. And we're hoping to use this tool to guide management. So if you understand what you have in your city here, the question is how would you change that city system to change the services in the future? So the tool's out there, it is available online, and it can work in Mexico. We are currently in 118 countries that have used the model. We have about over 30,000 users, and we have different tools that are online. Many of the tools will work directly here in Mexico. Some will not because we have data issues. So what I mean by that is what the model does, it simulates the trees that you measure based on your weather and your pollution system, so it gets your local data.
Neely de la ciudad de Phoenix hizo una presentación de mejoramiento de calidad del aire con infraestructura verde y forestación en Phoenix. Destacó.
So we've been working with them for quite a long time, but we're saying other cities do it around the country. So we're doing case studies right now saying it can be done. So we're actually doing it right now. We're trying to look at root guards. You can put root guards. You can put different trees. You can do different with your compaction. There's different technical ways to do it so to make the people that are managing the infrastructure feel comfortable. And the whole argument about engineers talking to engineers, that's really what it is. You really have to get the technical specs done, and it has to be proven somewhere else before they're going to accept you planting a tree next to their water lines. So yeah, so the barriers I was talking about. One thing we do, all new construction though, for all new development and all new things, our code says you have to contain 100% of your water on site. So all new development, you have to contain the water on site, which should encourage green infrastructure, because right now what they do, developers, they take part of their lot and they make a huge retention pond. That retention pond is not usable, really. I mean, it's a retention pond. You can't put a building there, you can't really use it. So what we've been trying to encourage is developers to use pervious pavement or things like that, where you can actually get credit for water infiltrating through your parking lot. But now the technical part of that is our city code people don't like that because they said, well, in the desert, it will clog with dust. And then it will start flooding, and once it starts flooding, everyone turns to the city to handle the problem. So that's still, we do have 24 monitors, and what we use those monitors for, well, EPA uses them mainly just to make sure that we're in or out of compliance, but the monitors that are actually exceeding standards, we do focus our mitigation efforts around there to make sure that the neighborhoods are mitigated with dust, mainly. It's a dust issue. But we've never actually worked with the Department of Health Services to do a correlation on health effects of particular people in that neighborhood. We've done that with schools, but we haven't really done it with neighborhoods. I think that would be a political challenge, because I think once you start showing that and publicly showing that, I think there'd be outcry. But I think everyone knows that there's a correlation. When you have high dust, you have more people going to the emergency rooms, and they're probably coming from where the dust is.
Margarita Collazo, de la UNAM, presentó un trabajo sobre alternativas para mejorar la calidad del aire de las ciudades, la naturación y su capacidad de captura de contaminantes. Se basó en un esfuerzo de investigación compartida para el sur de la Ciudad de México, en donde se ubica el campus de esta universidad. Como antecedente, indicó que la zona metropolitana del Valle de México, por su gran crecimiento de población, ha sufrido la eliminación de vegetación original al ser sustituida por áreas pavimentadas.
El no tener la vegetación adecuada para los habitantes, el ir quitándolas, el ir teniendo mayor cantidad de cemento, esto está implicando costos en la salud humana, pero también estamos alterando la biodiversidad que también es parte de nuestra herencia, de nuestro ambiente, del lugar donde vivimos. Las azoteas verdes o la infraestructura verde, en este caso en particular azoteas verdes, creo que el año pasado hablaron algo de esto, sí retienen deposiciones ácidas de la lluvia, que tienen la capacidad de retener contaminantes, estos hidrocarburos aromáticos policíclicos, metales pesados, y además retienen agua, lo que aumenta la humedad relativa, disminuye o mantiene la temperatura ambiental, y que encontramos diferentes concentraciones de metales en diferentes zonas, sur, centro, estamos estudiando ahorita la poniente, también como ejemplos, como nuestros estudios de caso que estamos aquí teniendo, pero creo que las conclusiones más importantes es que la naturación o el desarrollo de infraestructura verde es una actividad prioritaria y que los tomadores de decisiones deben de considerar que esto trae todos los beneficios que se han hablado, pero que también trae beneficios a la salud. Digamos que el traer beneficios a la salud, el no tener enfermedades respiratorias, el no tener estar expuestos a agentes cancerígenos o mutagénicos, esto va asociado a una disminución en costos hospitalarios. Creo que esto es un esfuerzo que puede hacerse a nivel de las autoridades municipales, estatales, federales, pero sobre todo incluir aquí a la sociedad civil.
Carlos de la Parra del COLEF fue moderador y presentó al comentarista de esta mesa, César Murillo, como alguien genuinamente posicionado para participar en este foro por su formación en Derecho Ambiental y su trayectoria profesional.
Específicamente hablando de la palabra árbol en el sentido urbano, si me permiten mencionar, adelantarme un poco a los que están, pues con base a los comentarios que han hecho los panelistas, pues árbol urbano, pues para mí podría entenderse como la autogestión para la recuperación de beneficios originales de las localidades. No podemos entender un México próspero si no entendemos que el medio ambiente es un eje rector. El respetar el medio ambiente y al hacerlo, asimilarlo para poder traducirlo en viabilidad y en competitividad es la llave que le queda al día de hoy en general al mundo y en específico a México. Y si no lo entendemos, este binomio de respeto y viabilidad económica, realmente no tenemos mucha esperanza. El cambio climático es uno o el principal reto que tenemos al día de hoy todos los seres humanos y en específico las ciudades, que incluso me parece que las ciudades que no son costeras a veces no han sentido los efectos de vulnerabilidad que ha mostrado el cambio climático. El poder recuperar servicios ambientales de las zonas o de los lugares que originalmente tenían son escudos naturales que nos permiten de alguna manera mejor adaptarnos a lo que está por venir. Están hablando de la posibilidad de entender una infraestructura y la tecnología como un elemento de gestión para la creación de ambientes más saludables. Estamos hablando que la tecnología puede vincularse con el medio ambiente, con la recuperación de árboles, de servicios, que nos permita volver a tejer esa cuestión social, que nos dé un sentido de identidad, de pertenencia y sobre todo alguien que visita por primera vez un sitio, claramente puede reconocer los lugares que son, digamos, con mayor vegetación, con mayor servicios ambientales, como un lugar más atractivo para poder vivir, o incluso decir, me encantaría vivir en un lugar como esto. Por eso creo que en este tipo de foros al día de hoy nos dan una oportunidad muy importante de poder retomar experiencias que COSEF me parece que ha sido una pieza importantísima. Si hay una comunidad a nivel mundial que ha dado ejemplos de que los límites fronterizos no son una barrera para poder mejorar el ambiente, es esta franja fronteriza. La franja fronteriza entre Estados Unidos y México ha dado verdaderas lecciones a los dos lados de la frontera. La franja fronteriza nos ha enseñado que la autogestión y la coordinación y de alguna manera las iniciativas se han aterrizado en proyectos reales, en proyectos que han sido financiados en instituciones como COSEF y que de ambos lados de la frontera han buscado reproducirse y que creo que tenemos mucho que aprender al interior de cada uno de los estados, ¿no? Las iniciativas que puedan tener desde el punto de vista de la comunidad, es importante retomar que la misma ley en México prevé instrumentos de política ambiental que no hemos agotado. Hay que buscar de alguna manera cómo ejercitar, sobre todo desde el punto de vista de la sociedad, que se hagan proyectos que vayan más allá de un solo gobierno. que hayan proyectos que sean realmente de la sociedad a través de los instrumentos de política ambiental y sobre todo, qué mejor aún, que puedan ser de manera combinada, de manera complementaria con ambos lados de la frontera y podamos enseñarnos nosotros mismos y enseñar al resto del globo que una comunidad, que en este caso como es América del Norte, pudiera darle respuesta a una problemática tan importante como es adaptarnos a los grandes retos que vienen.